It was the mid-1990s, and the technology world was brimming with possibilities, yet clouded by uncertainty. A new generation of entrepreneurs, disillusioned by traditional institutions, sought to make their mark. Among them were a handful of visionary minds, restless and driven, who believed that the future of commerce would be rooted in digital transactions. In the heart of Silicon Valley, amidst countless other startups, PayPal began to take shape. The initial concept was simple: a digital payment system that would connect buyers and sellers from across the globe. But the challenges ahead were enormous. They would need more than just a great idea. They would need vision, tenacity, and a team capable of defying the odds. This was the beginning of something bigger, something that would ultimately alter the course of the tech world forever. PayPal wasn't just a company. It was a revolution in the making, though no one knew that yet. As the days wore on, the team began to experience the familiar struggles of every startup. Funding was tight, and the vision of a seamless digital payment system faced numerous obstacles. Competing ideas, technical challenges, and the looming pressure of financial stability weighed heavily on their shoulders. Yet, they remained resolute. They had a vision that no one else could yet see, and they were determined to bring it to life, no matter the cost. The road was long, but with each line of code, each new connection, and each breakthrough, they moved closer to their goal. They knew that the world was changing, and that they could be the ones to drive that change. The PayPal vision began to take shape, albeit in fits and starts, but their belief never wavered. Every sleepless night, every coffee-fueled brainstorming session, was another step toward realizing something monumental. But amidst the technical hurdles, the true heart of PayPal was forming: its people. The team consisted of individuals from varied backgrounds, each bringing something unique to the table. There was Max, with his relentless ambition, Peter, who always found a way to challenge the status quo, and Reed, whose ability to think big kept them grounded, even when things seemed impossible. As they worked together, they discovered something rare: a unity not just of purpose but of vision. They didn't just want to build a business, they wanted to change the way the world interacted with money. It was this shared belief that kept them pushing forward, even when everything seemed like it might fall apart. The founders were driven not just by success, but by the power to redefine an entire industry, one transaction at a time. As the team huddled around computers late into the nights, they began to realize that what they were doing was more than just coding. It was more than a payment system. They were building a culture, one based on shared dreams and mutual respect. The startup world was still a wild west, full of uncertainty and risk, but within the walls of their small office, there was a sense of purpose that kept them going. They faced pressure from investors, competitors, and their own doubts, but they knew that success wasn't just about making money. It was about creating something that would last. Each challenge, each setback, only reinforced their belief in the mission. PayPal wasn't just an idea, it was the future, and they were the ones shaping it. Then, a breakthrough that would change everything. After months of trial and error, the team successfully integrated the first version of their payment platform. It wasn't perfect, but it worked. It was a small step, but in the world of startups, even the smallest step forward could mean everything. The excitement in the room was palpable, as they realized that they were no longer just talking about a dream, they had built the first tangible piece of it. It was a feeling that would sustain them through the tough days ahead. The road to success would be far from smooth, but they had just taken the first step into a much larger world. The PayPal Mafia was born, and they had set the stage for something extraordinary. The PayPal team had reached a critical juncture. As the platform gained traction, so did the pressure. Investors demanded results, competitors were closing in, and internal conflicts began to surface. The dream that had once seemed so clear now appeared clouded by the reality of running a startup. Max, Peter, and Reed found themselves constantly at odds, each one pushing their own vision for PayPal's future. Max, ever the pragmatist, wanted to focus on short-term revenue and product improvements. Peter, on the other hand, pushed for radical changes, seeking to redefine the industry. Reed tried to bridge the gap, but the strain was beginning to show. Their once united front was now divided, each of them questioning whether the vision was worth the sacrifices. The pressure was immense, and tensions ran high. It was a make-or-break moment. The only question left was whether their fractured unity could withstand the weight of success. Despite the internal friction, PayPal's platform continued to grow. Users flocked to the service, and partnerships began to form. The team's success, however, bred even more competition. eBay, the giant of online marketplaces, entered the fray with its own payment system, threatening to eclipse PayPal's hard-earned market share. The pressure from investors and competitors reached a boiling point, forcing PayPal's leadership to make difficult decisions. Max pushed for aggressive marketing and new features, while Peter focused on improving the back-end to ensure scalability. But as PayPal faced increased competition from all sides, it became clear that their survival depended not just on innovation, but on their ability to outmaneuver rivals. And that meant making choices that would change everything. Would PayPal adapt, or would it become another failed startup in the vast sea of Silicon Valley? Amidst the growing pressure, Peter and Max's rivalry intensified. Max, driven by pragmatism, saw the urgency in chasing quick profits. Peter, on the other hand, remained steadfast in his belief that PayPal's long-term success depended on its ability to innovate and disrupt the industry. This divide didn't just affect their working relationship, but also the team's morale. Reed, struggling to keep both sides aligned, found himself caught in the middle. One day, after yet another heated debate about the company's direction, Peter stormed out of the office, determined to take matters into his own hand. Max followed, attempting to reason with him, but the confrontation only deepened the divide. This moment marked the beginning of a painful realization. PayPal's internal discord had become as dangerous as the competition they faced. If they didn't find common ground, their dream of reshaping the financial landscape might slip through their fingers. Just as things seemed to reach their breaking point, an unexpected partnership came to the rescue. A major e-commerce platform, noticing PayPal's success, reached out with an offer, the possibility of a merger. At first, the team was skeptical. They had built PayPal from the ground up, and the idea of selling out to a corporate giant was unappealing. But the lure of the merger was undeniable. It would provide PayPal with the financial resources to outpace eBay's competitive advances and secure its position as the dominant digital payment platform. Max, Peter, and Reed debated the offer for days, each one weighed down by their own fears and hopes. Ultimately, they realized that their best chance of survival was to join forces with a larger entity. The merger would provide stability, and for the first time in months, the team began to see a glimmer of hope. It wasn't the victory they had imagined, but it was the only way forward. The decision to merge was made, but it came with its own set of challenges. The integration of two cultures was no easy feat. PayPal's scrappy, innovative spirit clashed with the more corporate, traditional approach of the larger company. Tensions remained high, and the team struggled to maintain their identity amidst the changes. As the merger progressed, some members of the PayPal team began to question whether they had made the right decision. But, in the end, the merger allowed PayPal to scale rapidly, reaching new markets and attracting a wider user base. The pressure remained, but the team now had a renewed sense of direction. As they moved forward, they would have to navigate the complexities of corporate life. But they were no longer just a small startup struggling to survive. They had become part of something much larger, a key player in the future of digital payments. With the merger complete, PayPal found itself at a crossroads. The company was no longer a small startup, but a rapidly growing giant, and with growth came new challenges. The team had to learn to navigate the complexities of scaling a business while staying true to the innovative spirit that had defined them. Max, Peter, and Reed had their hands full, overseeing a new wave of hires, new technologies, and larger office spaces. They were no longer just inventing a product. They were building an empire. But as the company expanded, it became clear that the challenges of corporate life were a far cry from the early days of scrappy innovation. PayPal's leadership team was now in the spotlight, and every decision they made carried the weight of the company's future. They had the chance to dominate the digital payment space, but only if they could successfully manage the rapid pace of change. As PayPal continued to grow, so did the competition. eBay had not been idle, and new players were entering the market with their own digital payment systems. PayPal's leadership understood that to stay ahead, they needed more than just innovation. They needed strategic partnerships and aggressive marketing. Max championed the idea of expanding PayPal's reach, while Peter wanted to focus on refining the core product. The tension between them remained, but now there was a sense of urgency that had never been there before. Every new competitor was a direct threat to PayPal's dominance, and the stakes had never been higher. As the team scrambled to adapt, they realized that it wasn't just about being better. It was about outsmarting the competition, outlasting them, and ensuring that PayPal remained the go-to platform for online payments. Their mission had shifted from survival to maintaining a market-led. In a bold move to strengthen its position, PayPal secured a key partnership with a major e-commerce platform. The deal was a game-changer. It gave PayPal exclusive rights to handle transactions for millions of online buyers. The partnership was seen as a major victory for the company, and it instantly propelled PayPal into the spotlight. The public relations teams worked overtime to manage the narrative, spinning the deal as a sign of PayPal's growing dominance. But behind the scenes, tensions were mounting. While the leadership team celebrated, they also knew that the pressure to deliver was now greater than ever. The partnership had opened the floodgates to new opportunities, but it also meant that PayPal was now accountable to a far larger and more complex group of stakeholders. The next few months would be critical in determining if PayPal could successfully execute on the promise of this new partnership, or if it would crumble under the weight of expectations. As PayPal grew, so did its internal culture. The company that had once thrived on its tight-knit, scrappy spirit now found itself struggling to maintain the same level of collaboration. The leadership team, though still united in their mission, was increasingly divided by the demands of scaling the business. Max and Peter's rivalry intensified as their differing visions for the company came to the forefront. Max focused on building revenue, while Peter pushed for innovation. Reed found himself increasingly isolated, trying to keep the peace while ensuring that PayPal stayed ahead of the competition. Despite the external success, internally, there was a sense that the company's original spirit was being diluted. The team struggled to balance the excitement of growth with the need for stability. They had built something incredible, but the question remained: could they keep the magic alive, or was PayPal destined to lose the very essence that made it great? Despite the internal challenges, PayPal continued to make waves in the industry. The company's user base expanded exponentially, and PayPal became synonymous with online payments. However, with success came scrutiny. The company found itself at the center of a regulatory storm as government agencies began investigating the digital payment space. PayPal's leadership had to navigate a complex web of legal hurdles, all while continuing to manage the daily demands of running a rapidly growing business. Reed, Max, and Peter were forced to shift their focus once again, from innovation and growth to compliance and risk management. It was a harsh reminder that even the most disruptive companies must play by the rules. As PayPal adjusted to this new reality, the team realized that their biggest battle wasn't against competitors anymore, but against the very system they had sought to change. The PayPal Mafia was born from the chaos and ambition that defined the early days of the company. As PayPal grew into a giant, the group of founders and early employees became something far more powerful, a network that extended far beyond the walls of their Silicon Valley offices. Each individual had played a critical role in shaping PayPal, but their bond wasn't just based on the company's success. It was the shared experience of overcoming the impossible together, a collection of ambitious minds who believed in changing the world. Max, Peter, Reed, and their team were no longer just colleagues. They were a brotherhood of innovators. The success of PayPal had launched them into new ventures, but it was the ties forged in the fire of those early years that would define them. They weren't just alumni of PayPal. They were architects of the new tech landscape, each of them poised to leave their mark on Silicon Valley in ways that no one could have predicted. With PayPal's success came a wave of new opportunities. The PayPal Mafia had already begun to branch out, with many of the early employees launching new companies and ventures. From LinkedIn to YouTube, from Yelp to Palantir, the members of the PayPal Mafia were now key players in Silicon Valley. They were building empires of their own, using the lessons they had learned at PayPal to fuel their new endeavors. Each success fueled the next, as the Mafia became an unstoppable force, reshaping the tech industry with each passing year. But it wasn't just about the companies they built. It was about the culture they created. The PayPal Mafia embodied a new type of entrepreneurial spirit, one that valued collaboration over competition, innovation over tradition. They were more than just former colleagues. They were a movement, reshaping the world in their image. But not all was perfect in the world of the PayPal Mafia. As the members of the group began to dominate the tech world, the inevitable question arose: could they still trust each other? The fierce competition that had once driven them to succeed now seemed to threaten their relationships. Stories of betrayals and rivalries began to surface as former colleagues found themselves on opposite sides of deals. Max and Peter, once united in their vision, now found themselves competing in different arenas, with each man leading his own empire. Reed, ever the mediator, sought to keep the peace, but even he couldn't deny the tension in the air. The bonds that had once been unbreakable were now being tested. And as the PayPal Mafia continued to grow, so did the challenges of maintaining the unity that had made them so powerful. Despite the tension, the PayPal Mafia had a collective understanding of one fundamental truth: their power lay not just in their individual companies, but in their network. They were a force to be reckoned with, and each new venture they launched had the power to disrupt industries. It wasn't just about business. It was about the philosophy they had created. The philosophy of innovation, collaboration, and risk-taking. As they navigated their new roles in the tech world, they knew that their legacy was about more than just wealth or success. It was about building something greater than themselves, something that would have a lasting impact on the world. They were the pioneers of a new age of entrepreneurship. And as the PayPal Mafia continued to shape the tech landscape, their influence only grew. They were redefining what it meant to be an entrepreneur, and their vision was unstoppable. As the years went on, the PayPal Mafia's influence only continued to grow. They became more than just former colleagues. They were an ecosystem unto themselves, a tight-knit network of entrepreneurs who shared a common bond. Despite the competition, despite the rivalries, they had a shared understanding of what it took to succeed in Silicon Valley. And it was this understanding that allowed them to continue to thrive, even as the tech landscape evolved. The PayPal Mafia had become synonymous with success, a badge of honor that carried weight in the industry. The companies they founded were household names, their products integral to the fabric of modern life. Their legacy was already cemented, and as they continued to innovate and build, it was clear that they would continue to leave their mark on the world for generations to come. As PayPal's dominance in the digital payment space grew, so did the challenges. The company faced relentless pressure from regulators who were beginning to scrutinize the industry more closely. The rapid rise of PayPal's influence had not gone unnoticed, and governmental bodies in various countries started to take a keen interest in the platform's operations. Lawsuits were filed, antitrust investigations were launched, and PayPal found itself at the center of a storm. The team, led by Max, Peter, and Reed, was no longer just grappling with competition. They were now fighting for survival against the very institutions that had once enabled their rise. The pressure mounted as they worked tirelessly to navigate the complex legal battles. With billions at stake, the outcome of these legal struggles would determine the future of PayPal, and perhaps even the broader digital payment revolution that was unfolding before their eyes. The legal battles were just one aspect of the growing tension. On the inside, PayPal's rapid expansion was taking its toll. The company's culture, once rooted in innovation and a sense of camaraderie, began to erode as it transitioned into a corporate powerhouse. Employees began to feel the disconnect between the visionaries who built the company and the corporate machine it had become. Internal politics, power struggles, and a growing bureaucracy threatened to stifle the very creativity that had made PayPal so successful. Max and Peter, still at odds over the direction of the company, found themselves increasingly isolated in their respective corners. The initial excitement that had once fueled their work had faded, replaced by the cold realities of running a multi-billion-dollar company. The dream of changing the world now seemed distant as the day-to-day operations and corporate hurdles took center stage. To make matters worse, PayPal faced intense competition from emerging technologies and payment systems. Other companies, fueled by massive investments and fresh ideas, were beginning to chip away at PayPal's dominance. Innovations like blockchain and cryptocurrency were becoming viable alternatives to traditional payment systems, and investors began to question whether PayPal could continue to maintain its lead in a rapidly changing tech landscape. This new wave of competition created a palpable sense of uncertainty within PayPal. Could they adapt quickly enough to stay ahead, or had they already reached their peak? Max, Peter, and Reed found themselves facing a tough decision. They could either double down on their existing model, risking obsolescence, or pivot into new technologies, possibly sacrificing their foundation in the process. Their next move would be critical, but they couldn't afford to make another misstep. As the competition mounted and the pressure of adapting to new technologies weighed heavily, PayPal was forced to make tough, often unpopular decisions. One such decision was the restructuring of the company's workforce. Layoffs hit hard as PayPal sought to streamline its operations and focus on its core strengths. The move was seen by some as necessary for survival, but to many inside the company, it felt like a betrayal of the values that had once driven PayPal's success. The company had grown into a massive entity, but with that growth came the loss of the agility and spirit that had made it great. For many of the employees who had been with PayPal since the early days, the layoffs symbolized the end of an era. PayPal was no longer a startup. It was a corporate giant, struggling to reconcile its roots with its new identity. In the aftermath of the restructuring, PayPal began to recover, but the scars of the internal struggles remained. The company had weathered the storm of competition and legal challenges, but its identity had shifted. PayPal was no longer the scrappy startup that had revolutionized the digital payment space. Instead, it had become a dominant player, one that had to constantly prove its relevance in a fast-moving world. Despite these setbacks, PayPal still held the lead in the market, and its founders had come to terms with the reality that the road to success would never be smooth. They were now focused on maintaining their position, working to restore the innovative spirit that had defined them from the very beginning. PayPal's story was far from over, but it had become clear that the company's future would depend on its ability to adapt and evolve without losing sight of the core values that had brought it to greatness. After weathering a series of internal and external challenges, PayPal had entered a phase of revitalization. The legal battles were largely behind them, and the competition from new technologies had slowed. The company was refocusing on its core values: simplicity, security, and trust. Max, Peter, and Reed, once again united by the need to move forward, led the charge toward reinvention. PayPal began to evolve into a more user-centric platform, making it easier for people to send money and make transactions from anywhere. They realized that in order to thrive in the rapidly changing world of fintech, they needed to stay ahead of the curve, not just by refining their technology, but by reconnecting with their original mission. The company no longer just sought to dominate the market. They aimed to redefine the experience of online transactions, bringing it closer to people's everyday lives. Their sense of purpose had been reignited. One of PayPal's key decisions during this period of renewal was to embrace mobile payments. With smartphones becoming ubiquitous, the company shifted its focus to ensure that PayPal's digital wallet and payment services were seamlessly integrated into mobile devices. This move would prove to be transformative. It wasn't enough to have a powerful desktop platform. They needed to meet consumers where they were, at the point of transaction. PayPal's mobile app began to rise in popularity, and its user base surged. Customers could now pay for anything, anywhere, using just their phones, and it was easy. This move catapulted PayPal back into the conversation as one of the most innovative financial technologies of the decade. The company's leaders had managed to pivot successfully, pushing PayPal into a new phase of growth that showed signs of lasting power. With PayPal's resurgence in the mobile space, the the company began expanding its reach into international markets. The digital payment revolution was spreading beyond the United States, and PayPal saw the potential to dominate the global stage. The company expanded into new regions, making it possible for users to send and receive money across borders with ease. However, this international expansion came with its own set of hurdles. Cultural differences, local regulations, and new competitors in foreign markets presented significant challenges. But PayPal's leaders, leveraging their vast experience in global tech, navigated these challenges with a combination of creativity and persistence. In the process, they not only expanded PayPal's customer base, but also strengthened its brand as a truly global player. The company now had a hand in reshaping the future of digital payments worldwide. As PayPal gained global prominence, the company was also becoming a force for good in the world. The team began to invest more heavily in initiatives aimed at increasing financial inclusion, particularly in developing countries. PayPal's mission was no longer just about enabling transactions. It was about creating opportunities. They partnered with nonprofits and governments to introduce mobile banking and financial services to areas that had previously been underserved by traditional financial institutions. This shift marked a new chapter in PayPal's evolution, from a disruptive force in e-commerce to a socially responsible company committed to bringing financial services to the unbanked. Max, Peter, and Reed now saw PayPal's impact as something far greater than they had ever imagined. It wasn't just about the money, it was about creating a more inclusive, connected world. As the years passed, PayPal's transformation was complete. What had started as a simple idea to digitize payments had evolved into a global platform, shaping the future of how people interacted with money. Max, Peter, and Reed had achieved more than they had ever dreamed of. Not only had they built a multi-billion-dollar company, but they had changed the financial landscape for millions of people around the world. The PayPal Mafia had gone from a group of rebellious entrepreneurs to a symbol of innovation and success in Silicon Valley. Their influence spread far beyond PayPal, touching industries, companies, and entrepreneurs all over the world. As they looked back on the long journey, the battles, the failures, the triumphs, they realized that their true legacy wasn't just the companies they built, but the way they had reshaped the world. PayPal had become a part of everyday life, and its founders had played a pivotal role in that transformation. As PayPal's founders looked back on their journey, they realized the scale of what they had accomplished. It wasn't just about the company anymore. It was about a movement, a shift in the way people thought about money, technology, and innovation. PayPal had become a staple in the daily lives of millions, empowering people to make transactions across borders, connecting businesses and consumers in ways that were once unimaginable. But the journey wasn't without its cost. Along the way, Max, Peter, and Reed had sacrificed much. Personal relationships had been strained, and their reputations were put to the test countless times. Yet, despite all the hardships, they had achieved something extraordinary. Their story was now part of Silicon Valley's lore, a tale of ambition, rivalry, and ultimate triumph. The PayPal Mafia had made their mark, and the echoes of their work would be felt for decades to come. As they contemplated their legacy, the founders couldn't help but marvel at the new generation of tech entrepreneurs that had risen in their wake. The PayPal Mafia had inspired a new breed of innovators who saw the tech world not as a battlefield, but as an ecosystem of collaboration and growth. PayPal had shown them that success wasn't just about building a product, but about creating a culture of disruption, risk-taking, and possibility. The PayPal Mafia's influence had spread far beyond the company itself, reaching into the startups, investments, and ventures of the next wave of Silicon Valley entrepreneurs. They had changed the very DNA of the tech world, and as the founders looked at the companies and entrepreneurs who now led the charge, they couldn't help but feel a deep sense of pride. PayPal's influence had become woven into the fabric of the modern digital economy. But as much as PayPal's legacy was celebrated, the founders knew that the journey was never truly over. Even in their success, there were always new challenges to face, new markets to conquer, and new technologies to embrace. The world of digital payments was ever-changing, and PayPal had to continue evolving to remain at the forefront. Max, Peter, and Reed had become part of a larger narrative, a narrative about the future of money, technology, and human connection. Their work had laid the groundwork for a new era, and while their names were already etched in Silicon Valley history, they were also aware that there was always room to push the envelope further. The next chapter for PayPal, and for each of them, was still being written. Their story, while monumental, was just one piece of the ongoing evolution of technology and its intersection with society. Years after they had left the daily operations of PayPal, Max, Peter, and Reed each found new paths, with ventures ranging from investments to non-profit work, continuing their legacy in different ways. They had become mentors to countless entrepreneurs, offering advice and guidance to those who sought to emulate their success. But they were also acutely aware of how much they owed to the journey they had been on together. The PayPal Mafia's bond remained unbroken, a rare and powerful reminder of what could be accomplished when like-minded individuals worked towards a common goal. As they ventured into new projects, they carried the lessons learned from PayPal, resilience, innovation, and collaboration, and passed them on to others. Their lasting influence was seen not only in the tech giants they helped to create, but in the spirit of entrepreneurship they helped to cultivate across the globe. In the end, the legacy of PayPal wasn't just about the wealth or the companies that came after it. It was about the revolution they had sparked in the way people thought about money, technology, and possibility. Max, Peter, and Reed had not only changed the digital payments industry, but they had also changed the entrepreneurial landscape forever. Their journey was a testament to the power of innovation, resilience, and collaboration. They had built a platform that connected the world, creating a new era of digital commerce that had become a cornerstone of the modern economy. Looking back, they understood that their true achievement wasn't in the billions they had made, but in the billions of people they had impacted, enabling transactions, fostering new businesses, and empowering individuals across the globe. As they walked away from the stage, they knew their story would continue to inspire generations to come.